In this video, we're going to show you how to replace a condenser on your G35 Infiniti. Before starting this job, bring your car to a shop and have them evacuate the AC system. Once the job is complete, you'll need to bring it back and have them charge it. Go ahead and remove the under splash tray right now. Our vehicle does not have one. Open up the radiator cap and remove it, and the coolant will drain faster. To drain the coolant, we're going to open up this little valve using a Phillips head screwdriver. I'm going to loosen it up. Make sure you have a drain bucket under you before you take this out. We don't need to drain the whole thing, just enough so that we can take the upper hose off without spilling coolant everywhere. Once you have a good amount of coolant drained out, we're going to replace that little plug. Put it back in. Then we're going to snug it down. Pull back the lower radiator hose clamp and pull this hose off. Remove the clamp for the overflow hose. Slide it back. And pull the hose off the radiator. The clamp off the upper radiator hose. Remove that hose from the radiator. Remove the 10mm bolts for the fan shroud. Remove the connector for the cooling fan. There's a little tab at the top. Press on that and pull back. You can do that on this one as well. Push the tab and remove the connector. Undo the clamp on the transmission cooler line to the radiator. We're going to remove this hose. There's going to be some fluid that comes out, so have a bucket under you. I'm going to point these up to try and minimize the amount of fluid that I'm going to lose. Do the same thing on the other cooler line. Remove the fan assembly. Twist these locking caps 90 degrees and remove them. These are the locks for the radiator. Using a 10mm socket, we're going to go through the front radiator support. There's going to be a 10mm bolt behind there, attaching the condenser to the radiator. Go ahead and remove that bolt. Remove the bolt from the car. Do the same thing on the other side. Remove the 10mm bolt for the coolant overflow tank. We're going to pull that up and to the side. This just gives us more room to be able to drop this radiator back. Push the AC disconnect lock up and remove the hose. The first smaller hose is going to be a 1/2-inch disconnect. Then we'll do that same thing on the other line. Remove the 10mm bolt for the air box. Loosen the clamp. And remove the MAF sensor connector. And then pull your air filter / box out. Undo the 10mm bolt for this line clamp. Just bend this clamp open to give you a little bit more room. We're going to undo this next line. We'll be using a 5/8 disconnect. And then remove the line. Undo the connector off of the receiver dryer. Then we're going to undo the 10mm bolt for this bracket right here. Remove this 10mm bolt for the ambient air temp sensor bracket. Pop that off and then just leave it right there, and the sensor's connected over here. In our case, this bolt would not come out. We decided to remove this 8mm bolt. That is the whole clamp around this dryer. I'm going to pull this clamp off and then remove the condenser. Just like that. And then I'm going to find a good spot to relocate the bracket for the ambient temp sensor. Remove the condenser from the car. Using a 25mm socket, remove the pressure switch out of the old condenser. When you remove this, inspect this O-ring. Make sure there's no cuts, and it'll seal into the next unit. Using a 17mm socket, remove the dummy plug out of the new dryer. And then install your pressure switch. And then we'll snug that down. Snug the sensor down. Install the condenser into the car. We're going to install our bracket onto the receiver dryer assembly. Snug down the 10mm bolt for the bracket. Install the connector for the pressure sensor. Just like that. Install the AC lines into the condenser. Do the same thing on the other line. Install the 10mm bolts for the AC condenser. And do the same thing on the other side. Install the top locks for the radiator. Install this bracket back around the AC line. Install the bolt. Install your air box. We only have a pod filter in our case. Snug down the clamp. Install your MAF sensor connector. Slide the coolant bottle into its bracket down here. Put in your bolt and then snug it down. And install the transmission cooler hose. Then slide the clamp into place. Install the trans cooler line. If you lost an excessive amount of transmission fluid while taking the lines off and putting them back on, be sure to top the transmission fluid off. And then slide the clamp into place. Install the lower radiator hose. And install the clamp. Install the fan assembly into the car. Install the bolt for the fan assembly. Do the same thing on the other side. Install the upper radiator hose. Grab the clamp. Put it back on. Grab the overflow tank hose. Put that onto the radiator. And move that little clamp back. Install the connectors for the fan motors. Push until you hear a click. Give it a little pull. Make sure it's really in there. At this point, go ahead and install your bottom splash shield if your car has one. Remove the radiator cap. I'm going to install a funnel to refill our coolant. Once the car stops bubbling, go ahead and start your car with the radiator cap off. Let it run for about 10 to 15 minutes and bleed the coolant. Once the coolant's bled, remove your funnel if you're using one. And reinstall the radiator cap.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.